Hello everyone and welcome to Upside Down. Today we will be playing Hellblade. I want to go in Hellblade and check how some of the models are done and also check how some of the... I want to go and check how Hellblade are constructing their scenes. They have a very cool atmosphere and overall very good environment. So I want to give you some more insights in some of the techniques that they're using. Nice. Right from the start, I can tell you that this 3-log made boat is most likely a scan model. It at least looks like that. They did such a nice job on the textures and the hair for the character. You can see there are these small planes with alphas that with extra hairs, and it gives really this. It fits very nicely to the character. Nice material for the water. It's yeah, it just simulates that there are models inside. Those are actually in the texture. I like how they're revealing little by little from the scene. You have this very thick fog and you don't really see in distance, and they're saying that you have arrived in the land, and they just revealed at the background this huge statue. Those trees, they look like that they have some subsurface scattering into the material, so you can see that they have like quite a lot of variation from the light, so they're more darker and lighter areas. Look on the left side, those two rocks, they're exactly the same way placed. It's nice looking scene with not a lot of resources. I can see that there are a couple of different rocks and cliffs. I see the water material. Probably there are like 3 to 4 variations of those corpses. For the vegetation, I see like 2, 3, 3 or 4 as well, different variations. And for the trees, I see something like, again, 3 to 4 different trees. And of course we have those spikes, which I think that they have probably just 2 versions of it. I don't really think that it's necessary to make that many more, because I think they have just the one that's broken and the one that's with the spike at the end, and they just rotate it and place it in different places. So this really can show you how that you can build a very good atmosphere and very nice scene with just very few assets, and still tell a nice story.
You might think she's brave to go on this journey on her own, but it isn't bravery that drives her. Bravery only means something to those afraid of death.
I like how they are using the 3D text. It's not working everywhere. I've seen a couple of games using such thing, but here, because of the whole background is dark, and also it doesn't have a lot of variations in color. It's like more gray. It fits pretty well. It's very well readable, and yeah, works pretty good.
I know what she's thinking. I hear her thoughts.
You can see a little bit of trembling of the animations of the character. I think that this is like a point where they switched. Like in the very beginning, it looked very smooth, and now there is like a little bit of trembling from time to time. I think that they now switched into compressed animations, because this is a common issue that in Unreal, if you import animations, and then you have a different way of compressing them so that they're a little bit more optimized, so it basically deletes or removes some couple of frames or smooth out in between frames, and it usually creates such a little bit of trembling into the animations. Not always, but you definitely could see that in the very beginning the animation was like much smoother, and then when the camera turned, it had a little bit of those movements. So let's see the scene around. Here we have like 2, 3, 4. Yeah, as I told you, 4 different type of corpses. Those guys, this guy and this guy, yeah, they're exactly the same. The vegetation looks pretty good. Nice material for the water. I think, yeah, they're using the same technique as the water in the very beginning. You can see that it's mostly in the diffuse. Okay, we here have already some frame. I think it's from a ship. Still, they're keeping very simple in terms of number of assets. You can see that we have like few new things that are appearing in the scene, but yeah, in general they keep it very, very simple. Still mostly vegetation, rocks, the same type of spikes maybe. Yeah, those are another ones. Oh, this I think it was like a VFX that blocked our way. Oh, what a nice scenery. Very cool. Very nice atmosphere. You can see how they build up the whole frame. You have the most lit part behind this statue, and then the clouds were like slowly closing that frame around. It looked pretty cool. You can see the symmetry of the character on the very back. You can see this line, so they most likely created the character itself completely symmetrical and then just added a couple of props here and there on different sides so that they break up this symmetry, but the base of the character was created symmetrical. Let's see if we will see the same seam at the back on her neck again. No, now it's already into the dark. Very nice setting. So first I would talk a little bit about this ground. Here they're using a very cool technique. So they basically have three, they have the dried sand, the one which is wet, and this other ground dirt texture, and they're blending in between, so you can create a very nice scenes and very huge terrains like that, and just with couple of textures. I usually, when I'm doing environment, I would like to create like 2 or 3 different types of each of the surfaces for the ground. This way you can after that blend it and create a lot more variations. Of course, you need to keep in mind that this needs to be optimized and needs to be playable, so don't go too crazy on this. Let's see those scattered rocks. They look like, they look like that they're exactly the same model. They're just being rotated around and scaled. Looks pretty good. And I wanted to check the waves on the shore. This is usually something that you can do with a special shader, or in this case you can see here the end of the plane. So they have the material for the sea, and after that they added just extra plane on top with this texture, which is this material, which is simulating as waves are washing down the shore. Looks good. We have the same spikes. I think this is the same model that we saw a little bit earlier. Then we have the bolt model, the bolt end, some nets. I think it's the same model, and this is, I think, the same as the one over there. So again, we have a couple of assets and pretty big scene. The bridge itself is also, we have the columns, we have the modules which are in the middle, which can be tiled, and then we have the fences and the pillars. So not a lot of assets again, and you can see that with a little bit of fog, some nice light setup, it creates a very nice atmosphere and very nice environment. Some ropes. Let me down in the comments if you want me to make a tutorial how to make all these kind of ropes and other cables and so on. I think it can be an interesting tutorial. Here you can see a little bit of UV issues. It's probably they fixed some issues, or they welded some vertices or something like that, and they just didn't notice that the UV were stretched or that they became broken. So this is something that you should look after, And stairs. Oh, let's see this model. It okay. It looks like that they just created one module and tiled it 3-4 times. And let's look. Oh, you can see that the backside of the module is missing. So yeah, always check the backside of your stairs and your elements that you know that they are supposed to be used in a way that they always need to be stuck into a ground or next to a wall, so that you don't get such issues. But like, they look pretty cool. They look good. Okay, something that I noticed in the very beginning, but here it's a lot more obvious. You can see that the texture, the resolution and the consistency of the textures, it's a little bit off. There are some models which have higher resolution and some which are pretty low. And especially here, it's very obvious. It's a good thing that you should look after the texture density and look after that everything is consistent. But I think that they just did it for either optimization purposes, or this model here, those planks were actually not meant to be so huge, so they just scale it up because they didn't want to create a special asset for here. And what I'm talking about, you can check the resolution on this, and for example on the columns on the side, you can see that there is a lot more details, and on the ground as well, and a lot more details actually than all the other models which are around it. But sometimes you need to, when you're in a production, you don't have the time always to do everything, so you need to use as much as possible. Some ropes. I want you to notice something in terms of the design. We have this landmark in the distance and this bridge that goes that way. It's a very nice thing and very good way of showing the player and where they need to go. So keep in mind when you are creating scenes and you are creating the designs that after all we need to guide the player somehow and tell them even subconsciously where they need to go. And having a landmark is a very good way of doing this thing. And also the bridge itself plays two roles. First, it drags the attention towards the big element at the end, and also it gives you a thought, okay, there is a bridge that's going to this huge landmark, so most likely I need to somehow first get to that bridge, and then from there I'll go to my final destination. So these kind of things, when you're creating the design for your scenes, it's important to think about. Yeah, here you can see the same thing, that those wooden beams, they are with a little bit higher resolution than the planks on the floor. I like how it became much darker, much more intimate the moment that she started hearing the voices in her head. They're playing really a lot with effects and also with the light around the character. It adds up to the whole atmosphere. You can see that we have our character, which is a CG character, and then the other character, which is appearing. It's not super obvious, but if you look close enough, you will see that he's actually a recording, and yeah, there is a difference between them. I like these visual puzzles. Oh, this ground here, it looks very nice. See, this is what I was telling you. You have two different versions of the texture. Like one is wet, one is dry, and you just play with it a little bit, and you can create such nice environments, very realistic ones.
Go through it. It's dangerous. Follow it. It worked.
You can see that the atmosphere changed. Now it's raining. This is a nice touch because usually backtracking it's not very fun in games, but when you're doing stuff like this and changing, like reusing the same environment but changing a little bit the sun there or the light setup, or in this case the weather, it's doesn't really fill the same space, so people don't see like they are backtracking. It's a nice trick.
What is that?
We have the same stairs.
Always here. I guess it's the same with heights. You can stand on the edge, pretend it's going to be okay. But you know that death is near, waiting for you to make that little slip. You can't just push things away.
The world of the dead is ruled by the giantess, Hela, daughter of Loki. The gods feared her bloodline.
Yeah, you see these little places where you can still go and see the landmark and check that you're on the right track. It's important because it's actually much easier to lose the player and where they need to go than people think. Designers and game developers think a lot about those things when they're doing the levels, of how to guide the player, how visually to show that where they need to go without pushing them too much and like making it super obvious.
The gate to Helheim divides the living from the dead.
And you can see that they still are keeping it very simple in terms of assets. Like they look very nice. They spent quite a lot of time building those assets, but still they keep it very low in terms of how many they produced, and yet are able to create very nice scenes and like quite a huge environment. Here we have like a few new columns, the gates, of course, some lights as well that are hanging. Again, you can see that they are playing a lot with the light. And you can see such a nice contrast. They went from a very warm light to a cold one, but they still keep a little bit from the warm light on the side because she changed like into a different mindset. So they played a little bit with the light color there, which also adds up to the whole story and to the whole fantasy. Nice effect. I assume that they most likely have a version of her completely covered, and after that they just drove this with a mask. This guy, we cannot even hit him. Okay.
A vision of what's to come. Poor Senua. The darkness does not bargain, does not reason. It is wrought, and now it has taken hold. It will spread towards her head, the seat of the soul, until there is nothing left of her. All of her suffering will have been for nothing. It's just a matter of time.
What a great start. Very positive.
The hardest battles are fought in the mind. That is what Dillian taught her.
Again, the same technique with the ground. You can see they have two versions.
But for now, at least, she still has control of her mind.
They did a very awesome job on her eyes. It's one of the places that usually looks weird in characters, especially in close-ups, but her eyes look very good.
Listen to me, Cinema. The goddess Hela lies behind the gate to Helheim. To open the gate, you must first face the gods that guard it. The god of fire, Surt, and the god of illusion, Valravn. Spill their blood to open the gate to Helheim and enter the
I like this presentation, how they are presenting the goddess with some VFXs so that it's obvious, so that you see what needs to be done, and after that they show you exact direction that you need to go. Oh, that's such a nice scene. You can see that they did columns, after that all the pillars and this roof. It's a very nice, and it's something that initially when we came from the cave we didn't actually see a lot of it, so they revealed it afterwards, and you can see that it brings again another level of detail and another level of thought, because creates like you're in the same familiar scene, but not really, because all the new elements that are here and reviewed. So it's really, they're really using the space very well and reusing elements so that they can keep it very simple and create nice and believable scenarios that don't get boring. Thank you very much for watching today's episode on this. I will continue the series on Hellblade. Please write me a comment if you want me to make a video tutorial of some of the models that we saw, or some of the techniques that I talked in this video. Thank you, like and subscribe, and see you next time.